Hello and welcome to another Board Crazy review. My name is D, and today I'm going to be talking about Clash of the Ardennes with
Will. The American leader, brave, courageous leader. That's some redundancy, but I don't care.
Yeah.
Of the 101st Airborne at Bastogne, however you would say it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this game.
That's not quite yet, Will.
No, yeah.
Let's first run my introduction
That's right.
to the game from our gameplay video. A little breakdown of the rules here, so that if you haven't watched us play this yet, you'll at least have some sort of understanding of what we're talking about. So
Yeah, and if you want to skip it, click ahead to that time right there, down there on the screen.
Okay.
Don't click the screen. Click on the time bar to that time.
Thank you, Will. Here that goes.
See you soon.
Okay. Clash of the Ardennes is a game for 2 players that is designed by Elwin Klappe and is, as of this recording, available for backing on Kickstarter. As the name indicates, this game is a reenactment of the Battle of the Bulge, with one player controlling the Allied forces and the other player controlling the Axis forces. The winner will be the one who can first complete their objective by conquering streets. Setup is fairly simple, with the battleground border first assembled to form the play area, and both players taking all of the units for their side. The objective and victory cards also get shuffled up into separate decks, and each player takes one objective card from the top of that deck, providing them with their secret victory condition for the game. Players go back and forth taking turns, and on each turn they have 4 action points that they can spend on the 4 allowed actions. For 1 point, a player may simply add any one of their units to any one of the game's 7 streets. For 2 points, a player may take a unit at the rear of a street and move it to the front of the same street, or retreat a leading unit back to their supply. And for 3 points, they may retreat a leading unit that has been blocked by their opponent back to their supply. Ultimately, the goal is to create a line of units all the way to the other side of the board, thus conquering that street. When this is accomplished, a player may also draw the top card from the victory deck and gain that reward. This is also likely to move them closer towards accomplishing their secret objective. However, this is easier said than done, as opposing units can destroy or block a player's units. Units can never overlap under any circumstances, but should units from opposing sides come together on the same street, there will usually be a clash. Clashes cost no action points and are resolved in an automatic rock, paper, scissors fashion, with tanks defeating infantry, infantry defeating anti-tank mines, and anti-tank mines defeating tanks. The losing unit and all other units of the same type that were directly behind it are simply removed from the board and returned to the player's supply. If 2 units of the same strength ever clash, then only those 2 units are removed from the board. The possible exception to a clash is when a player has the stronger unit but chooses to block instead of attack. By doing so, the opposing player is stuck and thus has to spend 3 action points on their turn in order to retreat the blocked unit, if they so desire. There are also some special units with rules of their own, but we'll go over those as we play. Otherwise, all you need to know is that the first player to accomplish their objective wins the game. So let's get started. Okay.
World War II.
Well, it is indeed World War II.
World War II.
In which this game is set. Now we can talk about it.
Disclaimer to everyone: This is a highly advanced prototype, but it is still a highly advanced makes it sound like it has intelligence.
It's like an artificial. It's just like Data from Star Trek.
Keep in mind, though, that we're framing this entire review through it's an almost finished but not quite finished product.
This game is on Kickstarter.
Right now.
It's already met its goal. It's actually doubled its goal last time I checked.
Good job. Great.
This game is going to be made.
Yes.
So you don't have to worry about that. There's also going to be a link to the Kickstarter below, I'm sure.
Yeah, all the links that you would need to find information on this game will be in that description down below.
But with all that said, let's talk about the game.
All right.
So, Will.
Yes.
We've played a number of 2-player games on the channel now.
And some World War II 2-player games.
That's true. This is not the first of that type that we've played.
Yeah.
Some good, some less good. I think this is a game that has the potential to be one of my favorites. You mentioned, I think at the end of our gameplay, you compared it to chess. Mm-hmm. And while that comparison may not be immediately obvious,
Yeah.
I do think it's fairly apt. This game does remind me, while I'm playing it, of a game like chess or like Onitama, various like abstract strategy 2-player games like that, where like every single move you make feels utterly crucial.
Yeah, absolutely vital.
You can't mess anything up. You have to really stop and think and make sure that what you're doing is not going to accidentally lose you the game.
Yep. I mean, I had hair when we started playing
That's true.
And it's all fallen out.
Yeah.
So
don't check that. So one thing I really like about this game is the finite number of pieces you have at your disposal.
Yeah.
Unlike the games that we previously mentioned, this is not a game where you start with all your pieces on the board and then you just lose them.
Yeah.
And can maybe get them back. This is, you start with nothing on the board. You can place them, and if they get removed from losing a battle, you can put them back on the board later. But when you conquer a street, which you need to do to win the game, all the units on that street that's conquered are then lost for the rest of the game.
Yep.
So you need to be really efficient in terms of like hopping up the board with generally only like a small handful of units in order to conquer streets. Because if you are too liberal with that, you're going to end up in a situation where or you can be very limited in what you can do later in the game.
Part of the reason that street capturing, limited troop number, all those mechanisms, the reason that they work is because of the action point system, where it costs just 1 point to put a unit down, but you can spend 2 to take the rear unit and hop it forward, or you can retreat a forward unit, and then also retreating blocked units, which I imagine we'll talk about in a second. But it creates it's like an interesting tile laying puzzle, how to minimize how many units you use to take a street. Because sometimes you're like, it'll be much easier for me to take a street right now by putting new units down and allow me to work on other streets. But then you have to consider, like, well, if I make that sacrifice long term, how's that going to affect me with my reduced manpower? And it kind of also this game, we'll talk about its theme later and more in depth, but it just also makes a lot of thematic sense that is an issue you would have to think about. I mean, even right now, I've been learning about Operation Barbarossa and how, like, the further into the Germans got into enemy territory, you would think that would mean victory, but it becomes a logistical nightmare of, like, your units are stretched out. You have so much, and you end up having to take units from the front line to control the areas you've taken and whatnot. So
you could, of course, send like your entire army to one spot and claim that one spot, but that's probably not going to cover enough ground to sort of...
And you have to secure your supply lines all the way back to where you started. So it's that thing where the more inroads you make into enemy territory, the fewer men you have, even if you don't lose them as like casualties, because you have to now control all the area you've taken. So this game captures that in a semi-abstract, semi-thematic way.
Yeah, and it's tense.
Yes,
because like you said, you could. There are times where you could save like a point on your turn to just place a new unit down instead of hopping to the front and maybe claiming a street or something like that. But of course, you also have the option of just not doing anything and waiting till your next turn, because those four points go quick. And the thought of like having a turn where you don't make progress is scary, because your opponent's going to go and they're going to probably try to stop whatever you've just done. So it's a real like push and pull, like between balancing, okay, what makes the most strategic sense right now versus okay, what might happen in a turn or two if I don't go too aggressive right here or something like that. Do I have the wiggle room to pump the brakes a little bit, or will that just lead me to having the entire street like wiped out?
Yeah, and I mean, and then all this tension, it comes from the fact that the winning conditions in this game, it's different for both parties.
Yeah, it's random and hidden.
Yeah, you have these objective cards, and you know what's on yours. You're not quite sure what's on your opponent's, but you can kind of, as the game starts to play out a little bit, I would say like 10, 20 minutes in, maybe even briefer, depending on how fast you play, you kind of have a general idea of what they're doing. So then that's really when you start to be like, oh, do I defend? I need to defend this street. I also want to keep moving on mine. And at the same time, the exact same thing's happening with your opponent. They're figuring out what you want to do. So now they have that same, and it it turns into this tense, standoffish.
Yeah, you can try to bluff.
Yeah,
but that's the same sort of situation with Conquering Streets. If you bluff, you're limiting your pool of available units by putting them in a street that is actually not advantageous to you, and then getting those back is costly. It's going to be 2 points for each unit. I also really like the combat. It's just a straight up like tic-tac-toe system. Tic-tac-toe.
Rock, paper,
scissors.
It's tic-tac-toe.
It's X's and O's. Yeah.
That's checkers. Well, we're mixing our games up.
We are experts at the tabletops. It is, rock, paper, scissors, where, one beats one beats the other.
It makes sense, too. It's anti-tank mines destroy tanks, tanks destroy infantry, infantry destroy
so there's no randomness. It's quick, it's automatic. But it also adds some depth to the game, because it's not just, you just rush up to a place and put the unit down to destroy the one in front. You have to consider specifically the order in which you're placing your units, because, once a clash, I think they call it, occurs, it's not just necessarily the first one in line that's going to get destroyed. Anything that's weaker beyond that is also going to get destroyed. So, putting a bunch of tanks in a row is going to get you down the street faster, but if someone drops an anti-tank mine, they're all gone.
All the tanks are gone.
So, you have to consider that as well. And I think that system works really well.
Yeah, and it was smart to make different tiers of infantry as well. So that if you could have a situation where you put your sergeant down, obviously infantry defeats an anti-tank mine, but he could also take out all the privates behind that anti-tank mine, which creates even more nuance and caveats you have to think about when placing out. Because the game recommends in the rulebook that you vary the order, you go tank, anti-tank, infantry, and you mix it up. But if you mix it up the wrong way, then a guy with a subgun can just come through and wipe out 10 units, not 10, but 2 or 3 units at a time. And I also like the blocking mechanic.
That's very good.
Where you can go all the way up to an opponent.
Got an example right here, actually. This private is blocking this anti-tank. In the last game we'd played actually just before this, just to play it again. I blocked. So basically, this private could have destroyed this anti-tank mine. I chose not to, and now Will would have had to have used 3 points to get this out of the way and open up that lane again.
Yeah, taking 3 action points to retreat a blocked unit is heartbreaking. It almost feels like you're losing every time you do that.
Yeah, pretty much. And, if they don't, then next turn you can just, for free,
I feel like we described the core gameplay. It's really, really well done. Some of, I guess you could say the game's intangibles are like add-ons. I feel like really start to hurt its overall effectiveness.
The game has some problems.
Why don't we start with, I think we should start with the objectives, because we already touched on them. Let's go back to the negative.
The objectives, I think, are currently the game's biggest issue.
Yeah.
I mean, the first issue is there's just not enough different objectives.
Yeah, I mean, this pile, at first when I saw it, I was like, okay, that's a good variety. There's probably I think there's 12,
there's 10
or 12.
I think, in our version.
But there's only 5, I think.
Only five different ones, and there's 2 of each.
Yeah.
Now, I know in the Kickstarter, I've seen that some of the stretch goals is more, 5 more maybe.
Yeah.
But it's still not enough. Once you've played the game a few times, you know them. And so it's very quickly you can figure out what your opponent's trying to do. And at that point, assuming both players are at that same experience level, it just becomes this slow, almost unmoving stalemate where it generally there's one lane that it's gonna come down to, and both players know that this is the one that decides the game.
Yeah.
And when both players are trying their hardest on just that one street, it's almost impossible to get anywhere.
It's not that this can't be fixed.
No, far from it. It seems like it's almost an easy fix. It's just, I don't know. It's just more objectives and more options because...
Yeah.
Yeah, as it's currently, it doesn't feel, I don't know. There's not enough mystery.
I hope that this is a game that continues to grow in that regard. Like you said, there are stretch goals that are going to be adding objectives.
Yeah, there are the victory cards are not much better. They're very situational.
Yeah, first off, you have to win a street.
Yeah.
You have to conquer a street to get one.
Which is only going to
happen.
happen.
So you're only going to do that a handful of times
maybe twice a game.
Yeah.
But when you get them, like I said, they're very situational. Sometimes they'll be very useful to you. Other times they will be useless to you.
Mm-hmm. It's fun having these kind of you've won something, draw a card, it changes up the game state. Mm-hmm. But yeah, when they're not balanced right, they can become feels a little Ameritrashy, but not in the good way. Because I like a lot of Ameritrash. It just feels like if I were playing chess, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, your knights are now queens. I'd be like, my opponent has 3 queens.
It's very at odds with the almost like too perfect rest of the game. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, I mean, we've both come to the conclusion that the spy is a problem.
Spy.
Yeah. The other special units are all kind of fine in our experience. Like, they work as intended. They're not like overpowered.
They're very situational.
Yeah.
But they're very powerful if the right situation arises.
Yeah, exactly. The spies, on the other hand, are ridiculously powerful.
They're just, and it's always useful. There's never a situation where you couldn't have your spy out there, and the spy, it can only be taken out by another spy, or if a mortar strike takes out units behind it.
Yeah.
Which is going to be really rare, because mortars are very situational. I mean, like, extremely. You have to fire 2 lanes to the left. You can't even go right or left. It has to be left.
It's strange. You're right. I mean, like, a spy is your best defense in this game. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be. Logically, in real life, a spy should not be obvious at all. But in this game, if you put a spy down at the end of a street, that is basically, like, the best way to block that street. Because the only way your opponent can even conquer it at that point is to use their spy. More specifically, the issue that we had at the end of our gameplay, if you've watched that, where it sort of becomes the stalemate maker.
Yeah.
Because, one player will put a spy down, wipe out the other player's spy, they get it back, so they set up the board, the other player goes again, they get their spy back, I'm going to play it now, and it's an endless vicious cycle of that. You have the option to play without special units in general, and that you can, of course, just not use them at all.
Yeah, or you could just be like, we're not using the spy. You could house rule that. So it's not like you have to use it, but it is something that if you do use it, you're going to be very frustrated with it. I almost can guarantee you, especially if you have some analysis paralysis like D and I tend to when we play. It's one of the things I think people who are prospective buyers of this game need to keep an eye out for. This game isn't 100% abstract, nor is it 100% thematic. There are mechanisms in here that make sense in a war game, and there are some that make sense in a board game. That's going to be something that people who absolutely love abstract games are going to complain about, and people who absolutely love thematic war games are going to complain about. But this game, it does an admirable job meshing them and making this like an approachably light but still very strategic war game, I guess you could say.
Okay, so I think we've talked enough about the gameplay. As far we've gotten our thoughts out on that. We can talk about the production now, though. So some good, some bad from my perspective. Now I know this is not finished. So what you see here is not what you will be getting exactly in the box when that game ships. As far as I know, the art is not changing though, which is good because that's good.
It's very good.
The art's great. It's evocative.
Yep.
There's not a ton of it. I mean, it's mostly just on the tiles. The actual the board itself has a bit.
Reminds me a little of the Grizzled.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and that's obviously a good game to mimic.
Cartoonish. Yeah. That being said, I mean, I think these are really good quality. These are wood.
Yeah.
These are not cardboard, which I don't know if that comes across. But these feel great. I like the way that they sort of fit together. So these I would not change at all. The board needs to be upgraded for sure.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is a prototype, so ours is a little warping around the edges, and that's going to be something that I'm going to be curious to see how they combat that for in the final product, because it's not like it breaks the game in any way. It's just annoying to, like, you always want to, play with it.
It warps like crazy, and it just not stay together the way you'd want it to. I honestly think it's just a single board that folds like a normal board game board would make sense instead of this sort of puzzle thing.
I do wish that our prototype came with some sort of battlefield grid.
That would be
because I've had actually run into the main reason I make mistakes is that sometimes
hard to tell.
I can't remember the exact spacing of everything because it's not all lined. It's not all laid out for us. So yeah, that's unfortunate. But one of the Kickstarter stretch goals will be a battlefield grid that'll ship as an add-on for the game, and I think. As long as they hit that stretch goal, that's going to add so much. To
honestly, though, my biggest issue with this is I just think it's needlessly big.
Yeah, I agree with you that it would be better if it were smaller, but I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to the production team that there are production reasons why it has to be this size.
Well, maybe.
So, I don't know.
I would love a miniature version of this. If this was like half as big, I think it would be great. All right, so we're going to give our final thoughts now. Again, no score for this one because it's not a finished product. So yeah, again, I think the core of what's here is outstanding. I think the game is already in its current form capable of producing very fun experiences. It's just, I've got some issues that we've already mentioned. So that's where it's at. I'm very curious to see what this ends up looking like as a final product.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, you're passing it on to me. Oh God. All right. Here we go. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great core gameplay mechanisms. Really, really smart blending of board gaming elements and abstract board gaming elements. I don't always love, though, the way the theme and then the abstract elements sort of butt heads. Mm-hmm. That's actually a bigger problem for me than obviously it is for you.
Yeah.
I do agree that there are some units and the lack of objectives that sort of break the game a little bit, but some subtle and slight tweaking, as you said, will fix that. These aren't issues that should be like, oh, I won't back this game because of it.
No.
If you think that this looks interesting, what we've said so far, sounds intriguing, then really the links and stuff are all down in the description. Take a look at the game.
And they've already reached the added objectives, at least the first, I think 5 new ones.
Yeah, and I think they're going to hit a good number of the stretch goals.
Yeah.
So
seems like it. They already have, so.
So yeah, I like it. And I'm like you, I can't wait to see what the final product is like and what tweaks they make and what they add to it. And, even if they don't fix some of the things I don't like about the game, I still think it's a pretty good game.
All right. I can do it? I can do it?
That's it.
Cool. Thank you for watching this review. Sort of. Yeah, it's a review.
It's a review.
It's a review of Clash of the Ardennes. If you enjoyed this video, please give us that thumbs up. Always appreciate that. It's good for us.
Comment down below. Not thumbs down. We're saying, well, if you want to do that, fine. But comment down below.
Comment down below any thoughts you have. If this game looks appealing to you. If you have any experience playing it, perhaps. If you're one of the lucky few who have already gotten their... What's this? You hitting a gong? Hit the gong.
Hitting the bell.
Ah, it's a bell. Yeah, of course, hit the bell. Subscribe to the channel. Social media is down below. Our social media. The Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. If you want to check those out, follow us on those. And I think that's going to do it.
Indeed.
So yeah, come back next time, where I think we might be headed to space.
Wow, it's been a while.
I think it has been a while. Yeah, so that should be fun. And yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.
See you next time.